The bells of King's Landing rang louder than ever. The sun was bright, and the air smelled of fire and roses. King Jaffrey Baratheon sat on the Iron Throne, dressed in golden armor he rarely wore. He loved how people looked at him when he wore it, like he was some great warrior, even though he had never fought a real battle. He was older now, about 20 years, but his heart was still full of cruelty and pride. He ruled with fear, and everyone obeyed him because they were terrified. Not because they loved him. Cersei, his mother, still whispered in his ear like a shadow. She told him what to say, who to trust, who to kill. But Jaffrey didn't listen to her as much as before. He thought himself wiser, stronger, and smarter than anyone around him. Even smarter than Tywin, his grandfather, who had died a year ago. Jaffrey had ordered a statue built in Tywin's honor, but then changed his mind halfway through. He thought Tywin didn't deserve to look taller than him. Sansa Stark had long escaped the Red Keep, and Joffrey still spoke of her sometimes. Not with sadness or love, but with anger. "Ungrateful northern girl," he once shouted during a feast. She should have been honored to marry a king. Marjorie Tyrell was now queen, and though she smiled often, behind her eyes was fear. She knew Joffrey's temper. She knew what he'd done to Sansa. She played the game carefully. Even her grandmother, Lady Olenna, walked on eggshells around him now. But whispers were reaching King's Landing. Whispers of a girl across the sea, a silver-haired woman with 3 dragons. A Targaryen. At first, Joffrey laughed. Dragons. Fairy tales for bastards and fools. He threw a goblet at the floor during small council when Varys mentioned her again. But the news kept coming. The dragons were real. They were not small anymore. One burned a fleet near Meereen. Another destroyed an army in Essos. The girl had freed thousands of slaves, and armies were joining her from all sides. The small council tried to warn him. She has ships. She has armies. She has dragons. Joffrey finally took it seriously when a raven came with a letter from Dorne. Prince. Doran wrote that he would not stand against Daenerys Targaryen, that he believed her claim was strong, that his people remembered the death of Ilya Martell and knew who was to blame. Joffrey exploded in rage. "Treason!" he shouted. "I'll burn Dorne to the ground." But it was too late. Daenerys had already set sail. In the Red Keep, tension grew every day. People whispered of escape, of leaving before the fire came. Even Jaime Lannister, Joffrey's real father, looked nervous when he spoke about dragons. "She's not like Stannis," Jaime warned one evening. "She has fire that doesn't die." And people believe in her, but Joffrey didn't care. He ordered wildfire to be made again. He ordered every gate sealed. He wanted the dragons to come. He wanted to watch them burn. "She's just a girl," he said with a cruel smirk. "I'll mount her head beside Ned Stark's." And across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen stood at the bow of her ship, her eyes locked on the distant coast of Westeros. Drogon soared above her, wings wide like a shadow covering the sun. She had heard of Joffrey Baratheon, the boy king who killed for sport, the tyrant who murdered her brother's best friend, the name that made even her blood boil. "He's no king," she said quietly. "And soon the world will see." The people of King's Landing could feel it before they saw anything. The sky had turned darker than usual. The sea winds were sharp, carrying the scent of smoke, salt, and something strange, something ancient. Rumors ran wild through the narrow alleys and crowded streets. Mothers clutched their children closer. Merchants closed early. Even the gold cloaks patrolling the streets walked faster, looking up every few minutes, as if expecting fire to fall from the sky. Inside the Red Keep, Joffrey stood on the balcony of the Tower of the Hand, eyes locked on the black line forming on the horizon. Ships, hundreds of them. His lips curled into a cruel smile. "So the dragon girl has come," he whispered. He turned to the maester beside him. "How many barrels of wildfire do we have?" 57, Your Grace," the old man replied nervously. "Stored beneath the great sept, the dragon pit, and the tunnels under the castle." "As you ordered." Joffrey clapped once, pleased with himself. "Good. When the bitch arrives, we'll give her a welcome so hot she'll think she's in the 7 hells. But inside..." Even he was nervous. He'd never seen a dragon. He'd never fought a real battle. He'd never earned a single sword stroke or scar. And now, War was coming. Real war. Not the kind he played at during tournaments. Far above the city, a screech split the sky. A sound so loud and ancient it shook windows and sent birds scattering. People screamed and dropped to the ground. Soldiers grabbed their spears with shaking hands. It was Drogon, massive, black as midnight, wings stretching wider than two ships end to end. His red eyes scanned the city like a god choosing his target. Moments later, two more dragons appeared. Rhaegal, green and fierce, and Viserion, pale and ghostly. They circled the city slowly, almost lazily, like predators that knew there was no escape for their prey. Daenerys stood on the deck of her ship, her silver hair flying wildly in the wind. Beside her were Tyrion, Grey Worm, and Missandei. Her eyes were focused, cold, full of fire. "Is that it?" she asked. "That's King's Landing." Tyrion nodded. "It looks peaceful from here, but don't let it fool you. That city hides 1,000 knives and one mad king." Daenerys gave him a sideways glance. "Mad king? Are you speaking of my father or Joffrey?" Tyrion sighed. "Both, perhaps." Inside the Red Keep's war room, the small council argued over what to do. Lord Qyburn suggested unleashing all the wildfire at once. Sir Meryn wanted to send archers to the walls. The Queen Mother Cersei poured herself wine after wine, but Joffrey stood smiling. "Let her come," he said. "Let the dragons fly close. When they do, we burn them. We'll turn her into ash and feed her to the rats." Cersei, slightly drunk now, leaned over and whispered, "She's not like the others, Joffrey. She's not playing a game. Neither am I," he replied, his voice sharp. Then, with madness in his eyes, he ordered every gate shut. "No one was allowed to leave the city. The people belong to the crown," he said coldly. "If they burn for their king." Even Cersei looked at him, stunned into silence. The first fire fell at dawn. Drogon dove fast and low, his mouth glowing before a river of flame exploded toward the castle walls. Soldiers screamed and scattered like ants. Ballistae were fired, but the dragons danced through them, too fast, too high. Daenerys didn't order the attack to kill innocents. Not yet. She aimed for the walls, the gates, the towers that stood as symbols of tyranny. But the dragons were wild, angry, and hungry for vengeance. Rhaegal torched the main gate, sending hundreds of gold cloaks running. Viserion flew over Flea Bottom, fire trailing from his belly. Panic took over the city. People screamed. Some jumped into the Blackwater Bay. Others tried to storm the Sept for safety, not knowing wildfire slept beneath their feet. Inside the Red Keep, Joffrey laughed. "This is what power looks like," he said. "Let the world watch as I kill a dragon." But in that moment, something else happened. A blast shook the entire city, not from a dragon, from beneath the Sept of Baelor. Wildfire Barrel had exploded too early. A green flame burst through the sky like a demon's breath, swallowing everything around it. Hundreds died in seconds. A part of the city vanished in the blink of an eye. Daenerys saw it from her dragon and gasped. Tyrion's face went pale. Missandei whispered, "What was that?" "Wildfire," Tyrion said grimly. "The Mad King's madness lives on." Daenerys clenched her fists. "They'll burn their own people to stop me," she asked. Tyrion looked up at her, expression full of warning. "No, not they. Him, Joffrey." And just like that, something inside Daenerys broke. No more mercy, no more holding back. If the boy king wanted fire, then fire he would get. Smoke curled through the sky like a black crown over King's Landing. From the air, the city no longer looked proud or beautiful. It looked broken, wounded, and afraid. Daenerys sat atop Drogon, eyes fixed on the Red Keep, her silver hair blowing across her face. She could see the destruction below, the twisted ruins of the Sept, the shattered gate, people screaming and running like ants. But what burned her heart the most was knowing the boy on that throne had done this. Not her dragons, not her army. Joffrey had killed his own people, just to make a point, and now she was done holding back. "Dracarys," she whispered. Drogon roared and dove once more, fire lighting up his throat. Inside the Red Keep, Joffrey still stood tall in the throne room. His golden crown sat heavy on his head, and his armor gleamed under torchlight. The windows rattled with every dragon cry, every explosion in the city below, but Jaffrey grinned like a child playing with knives. He turned to the guards. "Get the crossbows ready. I want her alive. I want to see the look on her face when I put a collar around her neck." The guards looked nervous, but obeyed. Even they feared him more than death. From behind, Cersei appeared, her dress torn, her hair loose and wild. Her eyes, usually sharp and cold, now looked terrified. "Jaffrey, we have to run," she hissed. "There are secret tunnels under the keep. We can still escape." He laughed. "Run? The king doesn't run. She'll kneel, mother, like all the others." But even as he spoke, the walls began to shake. Then came the sound. Not fire, not screaming, but wings. Heavy wings. A thud shook the floor. The chandeliers trembled. A gust of heat and wind burst through the throne room windows, and there he was, Drogon. The dragon landed on the Red Keep's balcony like a beast from the gods. His red eyes locked onto the boy on the throne. The Iron Throne that had cut hundreds, broken kings, and swallowed entire families. And now it held a child who thought himself untouchable. For the first time in years, Joffrey's smile faded. He rose from the throne slowly. His hand went to the dagger on his hip. Not that it would help. Drogon growled low, like a mountain rumbling before it crumbled. His wings stretched, his body rose, and his throat began to glow again. But before fire came, Daenerys climbed off his back and stepped forward through the shattered doorway. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned brighter than dragon flame. "Is this your throne?" she asked softly. Joffrey blinked, still frozen. You dare walk into my hall?" Daenerys walked slowly across the room, every step echoing. "I came to free a kingdom," she said. "But all I see is a tomb. Burned people. Children crying in the streets. You did this. I am the king." Joffrey screamed. "You're nothing but a whore with wings." Drogon hissed. Fire danced from his jaws. Daenerys didn't flinch. "No, I'm the last dragon, the true blood of old Valyria. And you're a child sitting on a stolen chair." Cersei stepped forward then, trying to stand between them. "Please," she begged. "He's just a boy." "Spare him." But Daenerys looked her dead in the eyes. "So was my brother when your husband ordered his death. So were the Stark children you hunted." She turned to Joffrey. "You burned your own city to stop me. You murdered your own people. You think that makes you strong?" Joffrey screamed and ran at her with his dagger raised. "Die, dragon bitch." Before he got halfway, Drogon's mouth opened wide, and fire came. It wasn't fast. It wasn't clean, it was rage. Ancient, unstoppable rage. The fire swallowed him whole, melted gold, steel, and stone around him. His scream echoed once, then vanished under the roar of the dragon. When it ended, there was nothing left. "Not crown, not armor?" "Just ash on marble." The throne room went silent. Cersei fell to her knees, eyes empty. Daenerys looked at what remained of the Iron Throne, blackened, melted, warped beyond use. She walked past it. Without a second glance, "The people will never follow." "Her," whispered one soldier from the shadows. But Tyrion stepped out beside her, his voice calm. "They don't have to follow her," he said. "They'll rise for her." Outside, as the gates opened, the people of King's Landing slowly crept out of hiding. Women holding children, men with soot-covered faces, old folk too tired to run. They looked up. They saw the dragon, and they saw her, Daenerys Stormborn, standing tall, her face covered in ash, her eyes fierce, a hand resting gently on Drogon's side. No speeches, no demands, just a queen who had survived fire and walked through it. And for the first time in years, the people bowed not out of fear, but out of hope. The ashes of Joffrey Baratheon hadn't even cooled when the true war began. Not one of swords and dragons, but of whispers, alliances, and betrayals. Daenerys had taken King's Landing by fire, but now she had to rule it. And ruling was often uglier than conquest. The throne was gone, melted beyond repair. The hall where kings and queens once bowed or bled now stood empty, blackened and silent. Daenerys refused to rebuild the Iron Throne. It was never meant for peace, she told Tyrion one morning, staring out at the ruined skyline. That throne was forged in fear. I will not sit on it. Let that legacy burn with the boy who died screaming." Tyrion gave a small nod, but concern lingered in his eyes. "You have their attention now, but fear does not last. They'll look for strength or weakness." She turned her head. "Then I'll show them strength and mercy." But mercy had already started to die in the city. Grey Worm and the Unsullied now patrolled the streets, keeping order. But not everyone welcomed them. Some nobles had already disappeared, hiding in basements, fleeing through the sewers. The gold cloaks had either bent the knee or been executed. Loyalists to House Lannister whispered in the shadows, planning, waiting, and the people, those poor, burnt, tired souls, didn't know whether to praise Daenerys or fear her. To them, one fire had simply replaced another. One day in the ruined Sept, Daenerys met with a gathering of lords and ladies who had survived the chaos. Most of them kept their eyes low, too afraid to speak. One, however, did not. Lord Grafton of Gulltown stood tall, arms crossed. His face held no respect, only challenge. "You call yourself queen," he said, "but you were not crowned. You have no husband, no claim through birth on this throne. You brought dragons, not bloodlines." The room froze. Tyrion braced himself. Missandei stepped forward, but Daenerys raised a hand. "I brought fire because no one else brought justice," she said calmly. "Where were your lords when Jaffrey burned his own people? Where was your honor when Lannisters ruled through fear?" "I brought an end to that," Lord Grafton scoffed. "And what now? Will you rule by dragon? Burn cities that disobey?" Daenerys' voice lowered, but the room felt colder. "I will not burn the innocent, but if any man threatens the peace I have bled for, I will rain down fire, and I will not weep." No one spoke after that. But behind the scenes, trouble brewed. Deep in the ruins of the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister was alive and planning. She had escaped the throne room fire by mere seconds, dragged by Ser Meryn through a hidden passage. Burned on one side of her face, her hair scorched, she had become a ghost in her own castle, and she wanted revenge. Her youngest son was dead. Her kingdom was gone, but her hate was alive and stronger than ever. From her hiding place beneath the city, she sent word to the Iron Islands, promising titles and land. She reached out to any bannerman still loyal to her name. Her plan was simple: gather allies, strike when Daenerys grew too confident, and take back everything in blood. "She thinks dragons make her queen," Cersei whispered, eyes full of poison. "But I gave birth to monsters. I know how to kill them." Meanwhile, Daenerys walked through the streets every day. Not in armor, not on a throne, but among the people. She watched as food was given out, wounded were treated, and homes were rebuilt. One day she came across a girl, no older than 10, painting flowers on the burned wall of a house. The child looked up, unsure who Daenerys was. "You like flowers?" Dany asked, kneeling beside her. The girl nodded. "They're better than fire." Those words stayed with Daenerys long after she walked away. That night she told Tyrion, "If all they remember me for is fire, then I've failed." Tyrion looked thoughtful. "Then give them something else. Build something no Targaryen ever did. Peace." But peace was already cracking. A raven arrived the next morning. It bore the seal of House Stark, Jon. Snow was coming, and he wasn't coming alone. The raven came at dawn, its black wings slicing through the pale sky. Perched on Daenerys' arm, it stared at her with sharp eyes, as if judging whether she was truly queen. The scroll it carried bore the direwolf of House Stark, and the handwriting was unmistakable. Jon Snow was coming to King's Landing. He was less than 2 weeks away, marching with a force of Northmen wildlings and soldiers from the Vale. His letter was short, as always, simple words, but heavy with meaning. "I come not to kneel, nor to challenge. I come for truth. I come for the people." Jon Snow. Daenerys read the letter 3 times before handing it to Tyrion. Her expression unreadable, lips pressed into a thin line. Tyrion didn't look surprised. "He means well," he said, folding the scroll. "But meaning well doesn't always end well." Daenerys stared at the horizon. "I has no idea what this city is now, what it's become." Tyrion poured himself a cup of wine. He's about to find out. Far to the north, Jon rode at the head of his army. The wind carried the scent of ash, even from miles away. He had seen smoke in the sky for days, long trails of black that marked what used to be King's Landing. He remembered the stories. His first visit, Sansa's tales of Jaffrey, Arya's hatred for Lannisters, and now a silver-haired dragon queen ruling a city built on bones. He didn't hate her, not yet. But he didn't trust her either. "I've seen fire," he told Sir Davos, riding beside him. "It doesn't build. It only burns." Sir Davos nodded grimly. "Then let's hope she remembers that before the city turns to ash again." In King's Landing, the news of Jon Snow's arrival spread like wildfire. Some whispered of alliance. Others whispered of rebellion. Daenerys stood at the gates when Jon arrived. No throne, no court. Just her, Drogon perched behind her like a living mountain. His wings folded, his eyes locked on Jon with quiet warning. Jon dismounted, eyes never leaving hers. They hadn't seen each other since Dragonstone, that distant memory when love had tried to bloom between two people born for war. But things had changed. Too much had burned. "Your Grace," Jon said, voice steady. "Lord Snow," she replied, though her eyes softened for just a second. "Or should I call you King in the North?" "I never wanted the crown." "Neither did I," she said. "But here we are." They stood in silence, two rulers without thrones, surrounded by soldiers who would die for them. Then Jon said, "What happened here?" Daenerys didn't lie. "I killed a tyrant," she said, "and set fire to the lies he built this city on." Jon looked around. Burned buildings, blackened statues, the melted sept, people walking barefoot through rubble, children staring with hollow eyes. "And what rose from those ashes?" he asked. Daenerys looked him in the eyes. "A chance. A beginning." Later, inside the Red Keep, Jon met with Tyrion, Grey Worm and Daenerys behind what used to be the council chamber. No more long tables or lords in silk, just maps on the floor and war in the air. Jon pointed to the north on the map. "Winter is broken, but the wounds remain. The north won't bend easily. Not to anyone, especially not a queen with dragons and fire in her past." Daenerys stepped forward. "Then let them see me now, not with fire, but with change." Jon watched her carefully. "And what about the rumors?" Tyrion spoke. "What rumors?" Jon's eyes narrowed. "That Cersei still lives, that she moves through the shadows, that some lords still swear loyalty to the Lannister name." A beat of silence. Then Grey Worm said, "We've heard the same. Disappearances, ravens intercepted. Something is brewing." Tyrion sighed heavily. "She's not dead, I knew it. She's hiding, like she always does, waiting for the moment we blink." Daenerys' jaw clenched. "If she rises again, I'll finish what I started." Jon raised a hand. "If you burn another city to do it, the North won't follow." "I won't follow." His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. Daenerys looked at him with something between hurt and fury. "I do not seek war," she said, "but I will not let the spider return to the web." Jon stared at her. "Then we stop her, together, but without burning what little is left." For a long moment, nothing was said, and then Daenerys nodded. "Together." But deep beneath the ruins of Maegor's holdfast, Cersei Lannister lit a candle inside her hidden chamber. Around her stood new allies, Ironborn, mercenaries from the east, and a strange figure in black. Robes who spoke only in whispers. She smiled as she unrolled a map of kings. "Landing, they think the war is over," she said, softly. "But I've only just begun." The storm came at night, not rain, not thunder, but steel and screams. It began in the Street of Flower, where starving peasants had started rebuilding their shattered homes. At first, no one noticed the cloaked figures moving through the alleys. They looked like beggars, nothing more, but under their robes were blades, poison, and blood-red coins stamped with a lion's head. By morning, 17 people were dead. 3 unsullied had been stabbed in their sleep. 2 Northmen vanished without a trace, and a message had been painted in blood on a wall near the dragon pit. "The lion still roars." When Jon saw it, his gut twisted. Tyrion stared at the words in silence, his face pale. "She's back," Jon said grimly. Tyrion didn't reply right away. Then he whispered, "And she's smarter this time." In the Red Keep, Daenerys stood over a burning map. Flames devoured the Lion of Lannister first, then crawled toward the north. "We knew she was alive," she muttered. "We just didn't know she had teeth left." Grey Worm had doubled the city patrols. Tyrion had spies combing the alleys, but it wasn't enough. "She's turned the city against us," Tyrion said, frustrated. "Old merchants, angry nobles, even street rats. They say your dragons are demons, that you're a foreign tyrant like her father." Daenerys narrowed her eyes. "And what do you say, Lord Tyrion?" He hesitated. Then softly, "I say they don't know you, but they know fear, and Cersei knows how to use it." Dany turned away, silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was cold. "Then we give them something stronger than fear. We give them truth." That night, Daenerys did what no ruler had done in centuries. She walked through the streets of King's Landing. Alone. No dragons, no guards, just her, a simple cloak, and the city she had claimed by fire. Jon trailed her from a distance, invisible in the crowd, hand on his sword. People stared. Some bowed. Most didn't. At one burned-out home, a boy threw a stone at her. It missed, but barely. "Witch!" he screamed. "You killed my mum!" Before Jon could move, Daenerys raised a hand to stop him. She walked toward the boy, slowly. Her eyes locked on his, eyes full of grief, not anger. "I'm sorry," she said. "For your mother. For everything you've lost." The boy spat at the ground. "Sorry won't bring her back." "No," she whispered. "It won't." Then she pulled something from her cloak, a piece of bread. She handed it to the boy, who stared at it like it was magic. Then she turned and walked away. No speeches, no dragons, just a queen who didn't flinch when the city hated her, but hate grows fast in shadows. Cersei had set up her command deep beneath the old Sept ruins. She was no longer the queen dressed in gold, wearing perfume and poison in equal measure. Now, she wore black armor, half her face scarred from Drogon's fire, her crown replaced by a dagger always close to her hip. And beside her stood a figure most thought dead, Qyburn. "The people are ready," he told her, whispering like a ghost. "We've poisoned the food lines. We've turned 3 of her officers, and we've sent word to Braavos. The Golden Company has remnants. They will come." Cersei smiled, cruel and slow. "Let her walk the streets. Let her play queen to beggars and bastards." She touched the hilt of her dagger. "When she bows to kiss a child, we strike." Back at the keep, Jon paced like a man chained to a fire. "She's risking everything," he told Tyrion. "One blade, one coward in the crowd, and it's over." Tyrion sipped his wine. "She knows that, and still she walks. That's why some people are starting to believe." "Some," Jon repeated, "but not enough." Tyrion looked out the window toward the city. "Then give them someone else to believe in." Jon frowned. "What are you saying?" "Come forward," Tyrion said. "Stand with her, not behind. You were born stark and raised snow, but you have the blood of the dragon. Tell them, show them. Make peace the Stark way, not through fear." Jon turned away. "That truth could break the realm." Tyrion gave him a sad smile. "The realm is already broken, Jon. The only question is, who rebuilds it?" But before Jon could decide anything, the attack came. Daenerys was speaking in the square, handing food to a line of children, when a woman in rags moved through the crowd with trembling hands. She carried no sword, only a satchel. Jon saw her too late. She knelt before Daenerys, whispered, "For the lion." Then the world exploded. Fire, dust, blood, screams everywhere. Jon leapt through the smoke, heart pounding. He found her buried under debris, blood on her face, but alive, barely. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at him and whispered one word, her voice like ash on wind. "Cersei." The Red Keep had turned into a fortress of silence. Every corridor was tense. Every shadow felt like a trap. The queen, their queen, lay unconscious in the upper chambers, wrapped in blood-stained sheets, her breathing shallow and labored. The blast had cracked her ribs and scorched her arm. Maesters worked without rest, but none could promise she would wake again. Jon sat beside her, his hand gripping hers like it was the only thing holding him to the world. Her skin was cold, too cold for a woman who had once commanded dragons. Grey Worm stood at the door like a statue. He had said nothing since the explosion. Only one thing echoed in his mind: Cersei lives. And now she had tried to kill the queen. Outside, chaos boiled. Riots broke out in the streets. People feared another war, another burning. The poor screamed for food, the nobles whispered of rebellion, and the rumor spread like wildfire. The Dragon Queen is dying, and in that silence of uncertainty, the wolves began to circle. A secret meeting was held that night in the ruined council chamber. Jon Royce of the Vale, Lord Grafton of Gulltown, a surviving Tyrell cousin from Highgarden, several lesser lords from the Riverlands and Reach, and at the head of the table sat Tyrion Lannister, tired, wineless, and dangerous. "If she dies," Lord Grafton said, "we need a clear plan. The realm cannot descend into war again." Tyrion stared at him coldly. "She hasn't died yet," the Lord corrected. Jon Royce spoke next. "There's only one man who commands both north and south." One man with Stark honor and Targaryen blood. Everyone turned to look at Jon Snow. Tyrion leaned forward. "He won't take the throne. Then the realm will choose it for him," Grafton said. "Better a reluctant king than a burned capital." Tyrion didn't argue, because deep down, he knew it might be true. Elsewhere, in a candle-lit chamber beneath the city, Cersei stood over a table littered with parchments and daggers. Her robe was damp with sweat, her burned face half-masked with black cloth. Behind her stood Qyburn, hunched and whispering. "They think she's dying," he said. "Their grip weakens by the hour." "And Jon Snow?" she asked. "He guards her like a knight from a song." Cersei smiled faintly. "Good, let him love her. Let him bleed for her. Then I'll make him choose between her crown and her life." Jon barely left Dany's side, but on the third night her fingers twitched. He was at her side in seconds. "Dany," he whispered. Her eyes opened slowly, bloodshot, tired, but alive. He smiled, relief washing over him. She blinked at him. "Are you real? Or a dream?" "I'm real," he said softly. "You're safe. You're alive." She tried to sit, but pain gripped her ribs. She gasped, wincing. Jon steadied her. "You almost died." Her voice was a whisper. "The girl," she said, "for the lion." Jon nodded. "It was Cersei. She's alive. She's rallying your enemies, and now the lords talk like wolves in the dark." She closed her eyes. "I should have finished her," she whispered. "Burn the roots, not just the leaves." Jon was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You have a second chance, but the city is turning. They fear you'll bring fire again." Her eyes met his, fierce and shining. "I won't run, Jon. I won't be another exiled queen dying in silence. If they fear me, I'll give them reason to kneel, or reason to burn." Jon looked away, heart heavy. "I've seen fire, Daenerys," he said quietly. "But I haven't seen peace." She reached out, touched his hand, "Then help me build it." Later that night, as rain began to fall over King's Landing, Tyrion stood with Jon on the broken balcony overlooking the bay. The smoke was gone, the fire's out, but unease still blanketed the city. "She's awake," Jon said. "Alive," Tyrion nodded. "And what now?" Jon hesitated. "Then she wants to finish this. And Cersei, rule. And you?" Tyrion asked. "What do you want?" Jon didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I want a world where no child fears the sky, where fire doesn't decide who lives." Tyrion gave him a long look. "Then you may have to choose between the woman you love and the realm you swore to protect." Across the sea, in the harbor of Dragonstone, sails rose against the dark waves. Black sails, with red lions painted across them. The Golden Company had returned, tattered, furious and ready for vengeance. At their head stood a tall man with cold eyes and a cruel smile. Not a Lannister, not a king, but a killer sent by Cersei with one mission: kill the Dragon Queen. "Bring me her head, and the throne is yours." Rain fell like knives over King's Landing. The storm had returned, not the kind that swept over rooftops or flooded streets. This one came on the tide, carried by sails soaked in red and black. The Golden Company, once scattered by dragonfire, had returned, reforged and furious. At their front marched Sir Merrick Volantis, a mercenary captain with no love for crowns, only coin. And Cersei had offered him enough gold to sink the Iron Bank, but she hadn't just promised riches, she promised him the city. Inside the Red Keep, Daenerys stood for the first time in days. Her face was pale, her ribs still wrapped, but her fire had returned to her eyes. She wore black armor now, no crown, no jewels, only steel and fury. Drogon prowled the cliffs beyond, sensing what was coming. Tyrion entered the war room, soaked in rain, his expression grim. "They're here," he said. 5,000 men. Siege towers. War elephants. They came through Blackwater Bay. They'll reach the gates by nightfall. Daenerys didn't blink. Then we opened the gates. Tyrion stared at her. "You want to let them in?" "No," she said. "I want them to see who they're fighting." She turned to Grey Worm. "Ready the Unsullied. Tell the Dothraki to ride at dawn. We end this before it begins." Jon met her in the high tower just before the battle. "You shouldn't fight," he told her. "You're still healing." She looked out at the rain, her voice calm. "I can't ask others to bleed while I hide behind stone. You don't need to be a dragon to be a queen," he said. "You need to be alive." She looked at him then, truly looked at him. In that moment there was no throne between them, no bloodlines, no whispers of betrayal, only two people who had lost too much to walk away now. She stepped close. "If I die tonight, will you still fight for me?" Jon didn't hesitate. "If you die tonight, I'll burn the world." She kissed him, once, softly, like it was goodbye. Then she walked out into the storm. By nightfall, the Golden Company had reached the gates. They didn't wait for speeches, didn't offer surrender. They launched fire and steel at the walls, battering the stones, forcing chaos into the city. The people screamed. Soldiers scrambled. The sky lit up with explosions, but they didn't expect what came next. Drogon. He descended from the clouds like vengeance given wings. His roar cracked the heavens, and his fire ripped through siege towers like paper. The war elephants panicked, trampling their own men. Arrows rained upward, but Drogon weaved between them like a storm given life. And at his side, riding hard through the gates, came Daenerys, not on a throne, but with a sword in her hand. Jon rode beside her, Grey Worm and the Unsullied behind. Dothraki screams split the air as they slammed into the invaders like fire through dry grass. The battle was not long. It was brutal. Steel clashed, blood soaked the cobblestones, and fire turned the night sky red. Ser Merrick fought savagely, cutting down Unsullied like weeds. But when he reached the inner courtyard, Daenerys met him herself. Her sword gleamed, her body shaking with pain, but her eyes never wavered. "You're no queen," he spat. "You're a tyrant with wings." She didn't answer. She drove her blade through his chest and let Drogon's fire finish the rest. In the chaos, Cersei ran, not toward victory, not toward glory, but toward survival. She had a ship waiting in the harbor. One final chance, one last escape. But as she fled through the ruined tunnels beneath the sept, she found her path blocked. Jon Snow, sword drawn, eyes hard, her lip curled. "Come to kill me, bastard." Jon didn't speak. He didn't need to. She lunged first, dagger flashing, but Jon had seen too much. Fought too many. His sword moved like memory. One strike, one scream. Cersei Lannister fell to her knees, blood pouring from her side. She looked up, fury in her eyes. You were meant to serve the realm." Jon's voice was a whisper. "I did." He turned and walked away, leaving her to drown in the very darkness she had ruled for so long. At dawn, the fire stopped. The gates of King's Landing stood open, but no enemy marched through them, only silence. And smoke. Daenerys walked the same path Jaffrey once had, but no bells rang, no cheers. Just a quiet city watching her from shattered windows and cracked stone. When she reached the ruined throne room, she looked at the melted iron throne, still standing in a twisted, blackened shape. She didn't touch it. Instead, she turned to the crowd behind her. "Lords, soldiers, and broken people alike, I have no throne," she said, voice raw. "Only duty." She looked at Jon. "Let it be known. I do not rule by right of blood, but by fire survived. I'm not Queen of Ashes. I'm Queen of Tomorrow." And for the first time, they believed her.